So please, I might start right now to share the presentation. Sebentar.
Thank
Oke,
you. Thanks,
Dazzle di
every.
sini dari ya, yes. So Dazzle, later you can introduce yourself, but wait a minute because I'm trying to open the slide.
No problem. Thank you, Papras. It's a very comprehensive presentation, and
Thank you so much, Deso. You're
and
welcome.
it's really understandable. No, UNFCCC is really,
Hmm?
you cannot explain it in one
Oh,
presentation, and
kamu
it's
bisa.
good.
Oh, bisa. Oh, yaudah.
It's good that
Oke.
you were able to
Oke.
share like what the work that you've been doing as part of the negotiation team of Indonesia.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, please.
for me, I have at least, I think, 30 minutes. I hope I will keep to the time. So thank you again, Mega and the rest of the WAGE team for inviting me to share a bit more about one specific agenda item of the many agenda items in the climate discussion. So good afternoon again, and I'm Dazzle Abatis. I am currently the program officer for the International Land and Forest Tenure Facility, or Tenure Facility in short. I just started very recently last month. But before that, I was former program officer also for the Non-Timber Forest Products Exchange Program Asia, or NTFEEP, for almost 10 years. So my learnings really are coming from the work that I've done in NTFEEP, and hopefully I can continue to learn more now that I'm with Tenure Facility. So just a brief background about Tenure Facility. It was formally established as a foundation in Stockholm back in 2017, and it really focuses on securing land and forest rights for indigenous peoples and local communities. We are one of the first financial mechanism to exclusively fund projects working towards this goal while driving development, reducing conflict, improving global human rights, and mitigating the impacts of climate change. So our work really is to provide funds directly to communities, indigenous people, and local communities, and also to work together with some technical experts to implement tenure rights within existing laws and policies. So over the next now just 29 minutes, I hope you could get a brief background information about Article 6.8. So this is just one of the agenda items in the UNFCCC climate negotiation. Next slide, please. Okay. So these are just the outline of my presentation. But before I go to 6.8, maybe I'll just give a brief background about UNFCCC. It's not in the slides, but some points that I would like to raise before heading to Article 6.8. So UNFCCC, or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, it's an international treaty. It was signed at the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So it's already almost, when we go to COP in Belém this year, it will be the 30th meeting. So imagine it's already 30 years that they have been negotiating for and negotiating about climate change. So really the main goal of the convention is to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that prevents dangerous human interference with climate system. It was officially entered into force 1994, and as we speak, a total of 198 parties, or 198 governments, are committed to limiting global warming and adapting to climate impact. So if majority, if not all yet, of the countries have agreed to the convention. And COP, or the Convention of Parties, these are usually the governments meeting during climate conference. They are the ones representative of the governments who negotiate and adopt binding and non-binding agreements. Its key instruments are the previously adopted Kyoto Protocol back in 1917, and now it's the Paris Agreement, which was put into force or effectively last 2016, under which parties submit the NDC. If you've heard about NDC, it's the Nationally Determined Contributions. So it's like the blueprint of each country on how to mitigate or keep global warming at what is the country's plan to mitigate and keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. Actually, the aim is really for 1.5 degrees. So that's a brief summary of UNFCCC. And as I mentioned earlier, Paris Agreement. So some of the main points of the Paris Agreement, which was ratified in 2016, one is every country in the world needs to agree to work together in one treaty. That's why they all 198 parties signed the agreement. And one of the major goals is to limit climate change to well below 2 degrees Celsius, or aim for 1.5 degrees to avoid the worst impacts. And then each country makes its own climate plan. That is the NDC, or the Nationally Determined Contribution. And countries needs to update it every 5 years to get in a ratcheted manner, meaning every 5 years it should be more ambitious than your previous plan. And then governments check the progress together in a global stocktake. So the global stocktake happens every 5 years, and this year actually is another, I think, is another important year because I think they need to review the global stocktake decision, and countries are required to submit the NDC 3.0 this year. I think by September. September ideally being requested by the UNFCCC because they wanted to do a synthesis report, the latest synthesis report for 2025 before going to Belém during the COP30, which is happening this November. So the Paris Agreement is legally binding, no? And it sets an important path for each of the country to collectively contribute to reach net zero emissions. And hopefully, and we all know that in general we are very, very far from the target. And I think for ASEAN, only Singapore and Cambodia has submitted their NDC 3.0. So I think Indonesia hasn't submitted. Even our country, Philippines, has not yet submitted. So hopefully we get to see, and then hopefully you have that for WAGI and also the partners have the opportunity to be engaged in the process of NDC formulation while it's still being developed by your country. And before COP30, there was an intersessional meeting in Bonn. So every June, there is like a climate intersessional meeting where parties talk about agenda items, what are the progress in terms of the different agenda items set for in relation to the Paris Agreement. And one of the agenda item in the Paris Agreement is Article 6.8. So now I can go to the presentation about Article 6.8. So just the outline, it's the definition of the NMAs. What are the core objectives and components of non-market approaches? What are the examples that there is already or there are already in the NMA portal? And what are the benefits, challenges, and possible engagement steps? Also talking about, for example, the Philippines position that I can share with you with regards to Article 6.8, and then what are the next steps, some updates, and maybe we can go, if we still have time, for some question and answer. Next slide, please. Okay, so Article 6.8, it's part of the bigger discussion on Article 6. So Article 6 is divided into three parts, I think four. But what I can share this afternoon is the differences between the three, and then more focused on 6.8. So for Article 6, there are three major discussion or agenda items in the negotiation. One is Article 6.2. It's more focused on the bilateral carbon trading, meaning countries trade using the internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, or ITMOs, directly with each other. So it's like country to country trading, carbon trading. And well, the goal really for 6.2 is to help the countries meet their NDC through cooperative approaches. Another pathway for carbon trading is Article 6.4, which is the centralized UN carbon market mechanism. So UNFCCC, as the supervisory body, will be establishing, or I think they are already in the process of establishing a global carbon market mechanism that the UNFCCC will be supervising or managing. And then they will this can be bought by countries or companies or individuals through the UNFCCC mechanism. And then Article 6.8, which is the non-market approach, or the NMAs, it's really defined under meaning that there should be no trading involved. So this is really different from Article 6.2 and 6.4. There should be no trading involved, and it's really more focused on cooperation through technology transfer, capacity building, and development aid. So it's the structure at the moment for the non-market approach. It's less defined than 6.2 and 6.4, but it also aims to support climate action, no, without commodifying the emissions. Um, you can see that it's abbreviated as NMAs. So when you see NMAs, it means non-market approach. It's a voluntary climate cooperation mechanism that do not involve issuing, trading, or selling emission units. So next slide, please. This is a bit small, and I hope maybe Mega can share to the participants later on the slides. But this is just to show the timeline, the negotiation timeline when they have started developing or started talking about Article 6.8 in UNFCCC. So you can see there that it started actually in 2021 in Glasgow. They have adopted the work program specifically under the framework for non-market approaches, and fast forward to Baku last year to that they also highlight the need for developing an NMA portal, and also to organize capacity building activities for parties or governments to showcase and also document the different examples of non-market approaches, and also encourage parties to record their non-market approaches and notify their national focal points. Later, I'll show you, I think for Indonesia, the government has nominated a national focal point for NMAs. So all states that are parties to the Paris Agreement, they represent the Conference of Parties, or the CMA. So all the 198 countries also agreed to this article, no? Article 6.8. Next slide, please. So this is just the full text definition of Article 6.8 that you can read in the Paris Agreement itself. So just to highlight that it also emphasized the need for an integrated, holistic, and balanced cooperation, and also complements 6.2 and 6.4, which are both the carbon markets article, and modalities refined. The modalities for Article 6.8, just like the other articles under Article 6, is also being refined through the SBSTA and SBI meeting, which happens during June, and during COP meeting. It promotes, sorry, next slide, please, Mega. Why for me, and also based on many studies, NMA matter. So Article 6.8 really promotes continuous improvement in climate action. through rising ambition as outlined in the NDCs. And as we know, NDC also needs new funding sources to be implemented, are the NDC plans that we identified. It also emphasizes land tenure recognition, especially for women, community governance, even resource rights as climate solutions. These activities can be supported through non-market approaches. There was a report developed by the Rainforest Foundation Norway that indicates how indigenous peoples and local communities really have received minimal international donor funding for tenure security and forest management. I think the report is named The Missing Pathways. It highlights the potential for significant climate action by protecting primary ecosystem and enhancing tenure security. And one pathway that they also mentioned there is, I mean, also that could be a potential to support tenure security for indigenous people and local communities through Article 6.8. It's important also because for those countries or parties who do not like to engage with carbon market or the trading itself, they can also opt to use this Article 6.8 to also still um, develop programs that can support climate solutions and also can be support conditional NDCs of countries without having to think about issues on debt or and be burdened about debt. Next slide, please. So I think in Sharm el Sheikh, COP27, they also formally launched the operationalization of the non-market approach by establishing the Glasgow Committee on Non-Market Approaches, or the GCNMA. So they have approved a two-phase work program for the GCNMA. Phase one, which happened in 2023 and 2024, they talked about identify and frame all relevant elements of non-market approaches. They have mapped linkages and safeguards and gather case studies and best practices to build the UNFCCC web-based NMA platform. You can also check in the website of UNFCCC that they have established the non-market approach platform. And the phase two, which is starting this year until next year, is to scale up the non-market approach implementation or development through learning by doing approach, and also finalize the web platform of NMA functionality and how parties like Indonesia and the Philippines, for instance, can maximize and utilize this NMA platform. What else? This platform, or like it's like a web portal. It started being operational last June, I think, and you can see later that at the moment there are only two NMA submission from parties. No, it aims really to host a comprehensive list of approved non-market approach by and also help states and non-state actors to record and exchange information, showcase diverse approaches in an accessible manner, and also guide users through submission the procedures. Because at the moment, only government representatives or focal points designated by countries can submit official NMAs in this portal. Next slide, please. So the core objectives of the non-market approach, it really aims to seek and raise ambition by deliberately linking mitigation and adaptation, and also ensuring that climate action supports communities in coping with current and future risks. The NMA is also promotes multi-stakeholder collaboration and encourages non-parties, especially development sector, networks of indigenous peoples and local communities, and also private sector to contribute to the work, and also programs that they can support So in the platform, there is like a support group registry where support groups like civil society organizations or even private sector and non-government organizations can register that they can support um, implementation and development of NMAs. Next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, NMA be can be categorized into many types and key components, as you can see in the slide. It can be policy and technical cooperation, sometimes appears as bilateral or multilateral dialogues. It can be joint research projects and specialized training workshops. There could be grant and fiscal incentives that include performance-based payments, direct subsidies, or revolving funds to support community enterprises or BUMI, for instance. Ecosystem services schemes such as payment for forest, wetland, mangrove restorations. And I think for the Philippines, we also have debt for nature swaps or even reparation frameworks. So it can be in many forms and components as long as there's no carbon trading carbon trading happening between countries. So it can pass as NMA. And in the next slide, you can see like a short checklist of what could be the characteristics of NMAs based on the UNFCCC discussions also in the negotiation process. It's quite small, no, but hopefully you can read it from the slide deck. So the three initial focus areas for NMAs, as agreed by the Glasgow Committee, are focusing on adaptation, resilience, and sustainability, mitigation measures to address climate change and contribute to sustainable development, and also to develop clean energy sources. Parties or the governments need to provide information, specific information of their enemies on how their program or project or other initiative meet the above characteristics that you can see in the screen. So actually, there's a checklist of characteristics whether it will fall under NMAs or not. So you can also check that also in the website of UNFCCC. But later, I think Mega will share the slides with you. So how do non-market approaches support NDC? I think it was a question raised in the concept note by Wagi. So NMA is really under Article 6.8 can assist host parties in implementation of their NDCs. So NMAs can offer like an alternative mechanism to achieve climate goals, no? And we all know that it's not only market approaches that can contribute to NDC implementation, but also non-market approaches. These approaches are designed to complement and not replace market-based mechanisms, and also to provide additional options and tools for governments and parties, particularly to developing countries to meet their climate targets. And later you can see in the succeeding slides that there is a platform already, or the NMA platform, which really serves as a database for recording and sharing non-market approaches. But at the moment, it's still I think parties have not really exhaust the use of this platform, and many haven't really submitted. Only two NMAs are still approved in the platform. But this platform doesn't replace any existing NDC reporting requirement. It should be complementing and also NMAs contributes to NDC. Parties are really still required to submit and report their NDC separately, so to ensure transparency and accountability. Maybe also just to add that NMAs have really, as you can see, potential synergies across mitigation, adaptation, finance, technology transfer, capacity building. All of these are important agenda items in the UNFCCC climate negotiation. Basically, NMA is really like an alternative mechanism, a non-carbon trading, non-carbon market approach to how they call it, reduce emissions and strengthen climate resilience of countries. So this really is an option that parties and non-parties can can utilize to help support the implementation and realization of the country's MDCs. Next slide, please. So who can participate in the non-market approaches? Anyone actually interested in non-market approaches can participate in the identification, implementation, and scaling up of initiatives. However, at the moment in the agreement among parties, only parties can record non-market approaches on the NMA platform. But non-party stakeholders working on non-market approaches based on the characteristics that we have shown earlier can still register as support providers on the NMA platform. And also, what is the role of support providers? Support providers can assist the parties or the governments in identifying potential non-market approaches from their existing programs or projects, and also assist parties with preparing their submissions to the NMA platform. So there's like an online and offline form that needs to be submitted in the portal. And usually the meetings and workshops of the Glasgow Committee on the Non-Market Approach, which happens in June and also during COP, it's open mostly through informal meeting, open to both party and non-party stakeholders. Sometimes they do, although some parties or some meeting agenda items are usually closed door, or meaning it's not open to observers like civil society organizations, but most of the time, the initial discussions or the negotiations, they open it to observer status organizations. I think some of the members of WAGI are observer status organizations who can follow the negotiation or the development on Article 6 in general in Belen. So this, actually what I did for this one is also I just followed the Article 6.8 negotiation specifically just this June. So I'm also still learning about what Article 6.8 is. 6.2 and 6.4, it's actually really more complicated because there's lots of computations on carbon sequestration. 6.8 is still, for me, more easier to follow. But it's also but it's also an important and emerging agenda item in UNFCCC. Next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, there are only two, I think, submitted NMAs in the registry. When you go to UNFCCC NMA platform website, you can see that there are two approved submission. One is the Subaru initiative by Japan. And one of the characteristics that I forgot to highlight is it should be the submission of NMAs in the portal, it should be multi-party, meaning more than one party needs to cooperate to submit and work together on an NMA submission. But they can also be supported by non-party stakeholders like support groups like civil society organizations or private sector who can then support the work either through technical means or financial means, who can then support the implementation of the NMA. What else? So you can see there's Subaru initiative about talking about flood resilient drainage grants and tech transfer, and one project that are already approved under NMA is about adaptation benefit mechanism. Really more focused on blended finance adaptation gains in Uganda. You can read in detail more about these projects in the NMA platform, which I also put the reference links in the slide. So I think for Subaru, they have registered their NMA last March. It really brings private sector to engage with I think 4 Asia Pacific cities, no, Cambodia, Nepal, Philippines, and Vietnam, to pilot flood resilient drainage systems, and nature-based riverbank protections. And then the second project, the Uganda one, is the Uganda Adaptation Benefits Mechanism. They registered it in the NMA platform late 2024 on behalf of the, I think, 6 African host countries. It's a blended public-private finance project that engage also local government pilots to quantify the adaptation gains, for example, from improved water security to resilient infrastructure. So these two projects registered in the NMA platform, they illustrate how multi-country or multi-party or and grants-based cooperation can really help deliver measurable co-benefits for communities and ecosystems. Next slide, please. I think I still have a few more slides. Yeah, so benefits and challenges. So if you work on a non-market approach mechanism or project, it can really help direct finance to communities and reduce delays. You can embed free, prior, and informed consent, and it must be embedded especially for indigenous peoples' territories and tenure security. It can support other projects that have co-benefits related to climate change mitigation and adaptation, like establishing clinics, water, energy, supporting livelihoods. And there's also, but unfortunately, because it's really sometimes it can be a short-term project, there's a risk of short-term funding, meaning the funding is really only for that specific project, and there could be some measuring, reporting, and verification or MRV capacity gaps, and sometimes legal misalignment. So there's some disadvantages also or cons in terms of implementing Article 6.8, but it also depends on the project, no? Next slide, please. So just to share briefly what Action Klima Pilipinas, or it means Climate Action Philippines position on Article 6.8 during the recently concluded subsidiary body meeting number 62, or the 62nd meeting of the subsidiary bodies for the UNFCCC last June. So there really was an emphasis by the network of civil society in the Philippines to exclude carbon offsets under 6.8, because it's really more focused on non-market approaches. And it also needs, how do you call it, must be built within a transparent and accessible framework of social justice, gender justice, and rights-based ecosystems approaches. It should also focus and prioritize particularly areas to support land tenure rights and rights-based approaches, external debt cancellation, just transition, ecosystem protection, and many other areas that were recommended. And there was also a suggestion to advocate for the inclusion of indigenous people's knowledge systems, practices, customary governance, and sustainable management of resources to be supported under MMA. Next slide, please. Just to show also some of the updates from the UNFCCC meeting last June. So there's really, as Pras mentioned, not really much outcome from that meeting. Hopefully there will be a good negotiation in Balan, since this is coined as a Forest Cup, IP Cup, and also many other cups. They coined it in many other terms. So hopefully there will be more discussion, especially on indigenous peoples and land rights and the importance of forest ecosystem in NDC in Belém. But for during the previous one meeting, it's really the parties are still really discussing about how to improve the NMA platform, because there's only 2 submissions at the moment, and then there were many spin-off group meeting or small group meeting that discussed policy, not really policy recommendation, but recommendations specifically to improve the usage of the platform, there were also some parties that proposed that there should be technical and operational enhancements to improve the portal and also the capacity of the government and parties to develop non-market approach projects and that they can submit in the platform. I think there's only 2 recorded NMAs and there are 23 support providers that are registered in the platform. National focal point nominations already from 78 to 98, and Indonesia is one of them. I think there's also already a focal point for Indonesia on NMA. Next slide, please. Some possible advocacy points that based on the reflections that I had, also the experience listening to the negotiations in Bonn. These are some of the possible advocacy points that we can maybe discuss now, from now until Belém, and we can bring to Belém. One is really to operationalize the implementation of 6.8 in the country, and also link the local community and indigenous people platform, the one that Papras has been sharing earlier, with Article 6.8, because indigenous peoples and local communities have been doing a lot of non-market approaches or non-market initiatives, and it also needs to be recognized and supported. Direct implementation, it's really they already are doing a lot of things that have good impact in our climate. They just need support. Support in terms of technical and financial aspects to really sustain the work that they do in their territories. Next slide, please. It's also important to strengthen tenure security and community governance as an important component of any climate solution, and promote ecosystem-based adaptation, and emphasize grants-based predictable funding, especially for IP and LCs. And there's also a Green Climate Fund sectoral guidance on forest and land use that we need to review, because they also are now. There's also a growing interest and also growing understanding within Green Climate Fund that indigenous peoples must be funded. And I think in the coming months you will see, and also in Belém, they might also share a bit more about how GCF is also encouraging indigenous peoples led concept note submission to the GCF. As you may recall, I think in July, tenure facility was officially approved as an accredited entity to the Green Climate Fund, and we are working with our partners from the different regions to help them develop concept note that are indigenous peoples led that we can submit to the Green Climate Fund, and also to continue to advocate for direct access mechanisms for IP and LCs, including women, no? Not only for Green Climate Fund, but other financial mechanisms. Next slide, please. I think this is my last slide. So you can also connect and engage with your Article 6.8 focal point. I put here in the screen the name of the Article 6.8 focal point for Indonesia. You can see I got it from the UNFCCC portal. In the UNFCCC, they have the registry of the focal points for each of the countries, and Mr. Ari Subianto from the Climate Change and Carbon Pricing Governance is the focal point for Article 6.8. So if you want to learn more at the Indonesia context and how WAGIII members and partners can engage and develop and co-develop some NMA initiatives with the government and other partners, you can reach out to him. And next slide, I think that's just for the references. You can also read more about it, because what I've shared is just really some of the highlights about non-market approaches. So thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak atas waktu yang telah Anda luangkan siang ini. Sekali lagi terima kasih kepada WAGIII atas kesempatannya mengundang saya untuk berbagi. Thank you and good afternoon.
Luar biasa, Dazzle. Kita sangat mengapresiasi tentunya ya karena dengan insight dan tentunya presentasi yang juga menarik karena ada beberapa poin yang itu juga cukup membuat saya jadi banyak membaca. Jujur jadi kayak oh ini ternyata kaitannya ke sini dan ternyata ini outputnya kayak gini-gini. Aduh. Tapi memang dari yang teman-teman lihat juga pastinya ya nanti teman-teman bisa lihat di folder presentasi yang nanti juga memang akan kami kirim juga lewat email. Jadi nggak hanya di Zoom chat berikut dengan form feedback, tapi untuk menindaklanjuti gitu ya, Dazzle. So before moving on to our Q&A session, I'd like to ask several questions before I think our participants here are still trying to figure out and about this synergy. I mean, is there any chance you think that's available for us? Like, for example, like this article 6.8 could create synergies between areas like mitigation, adaptation, finance, and capacity building. Do you think that's possible? And then how how do you think about our position, for example, as a woman or like as an indigenous woman, how that we can participate in all this process? Because I know when we come to the COP, I mean, how that we can go beyond our presentation and that high level climate conference. Any tips or any insights that you've experienced before? Thank you.
Thanks, Mega. I think in one of the slides, you can see the characteristics of NMAs, and really it's really linked towards the many important agenda items actually for the climate discussion, like mitigation, adaptation, finance, technology transfer, and capacity
Yeah.
buildings. And I think that's already it's important that the projects or initiatives that will be developed under NMA really contributes to this integrated,
All
holistic,
this.
and balanced manner. No, so it can be it can be a project that really are focused on adaptation. It can also be a focus on mitigation. It's up to the uh, project developers of NMA. How can they frame it? But there's also a checklist that I showed earlier. It needs to before it pass as NMA, it needs to pass to this checklist whether it falls and is aligned with the different how do you call it, conditions for it to be identified as NMA. Like for example, does the initiative or the project promote mitigation and adaptation ambition? Does it enhance participation of public and private sector, including women and youth, indigenous people, civil society organizations in the implementation of NDC? And also, for example, does the initiative involve more than one party? So because NMA needs to be multi-party. So those kinds of criteria that when you develop and discuss with your focal point for 6.8, you can work together towards and align the projects and initiatives that you have been
Initiatives, yeah.
maybe already been developing at the moment or plan to develop in the future. Does it fall in these certain specific requirements? And also engaging indigenous women or indigenous youth, for instance, it should be important, especially if you are working on indigenous people's territories, and it must be included. They must be meaningfully engaged and not just be part of like the consultation
Yeah,
process.
sure,
If
sure.
possible, they can be engaged in the development of the project or in an initiative of NMA itself. That would be very ideal. I hope it's helpful. And maybe in the when you go to Belém, for those who are going to Belém, it's really important to how do you call it? It's ideal if you have since Wagi is an alliance, you can go there and before going there strategize who can follow what agenda item. Because for example, Article 6, there's already one, two, I think three
Tree.
agenda items for
Mm.
Article 6, the 6.2, 6.4, and 6.8. Sometimes the meeting happens simultaneously. So one person cannot follow maybe one or maybe multiple agenda items. And some of you will have to follow also the discussions on the local community and indigenous peoples, also for adaptation and mitigation. So it's good to strategize within the network, especially for Indonesia partners who will come, and then strategize and identify a focal person who will be following the agenda item on adaptation or mitigation, and then have some time within the day to share your what you've observed.
Yeah.
Because anyway, we will not be going there as negotiator. We will be coming there as an observer, no, as civil society organization. But it's also an opportunity for CSOs like us to meet our negotiators,
Mm.
in the sometimes you will not be able to meet them in Indonesia or in Jakarta, unfortunately, but you can also catch them in the hallways in Brazil or in Bonn. So it's also a good opportunity to engage with them and
Yeah.
also discuss with them your recommendations.
Ya. Oke, teman-teman, terima kasih Dezel untuk inputnya dan jawabannya. Tapi semoga dari sini teman-teman tidak berhenti ya, karena terus mencari info dan memperkaya dengan berbagai insight gitu ya. Meskipun memang beberapa akhir ini kita diterpa berbagai persoalan gitu ya, dari berbagai isu dan lapisan. Tapi semoga itu tidak menghentikan kita untuk terus optimis gitu ya, terus berkarya dan tentu di sini mungkin ada yang ingin bertanya atau follow up question gitu ya, spesifik mungkin ke Pak Pras. Terima kasih banyak Pak Pras
Sama-sama,
karena itu
Mbak.
juga sangat mencerahkan kita semua di sini. Dan khusus mungkin untuk Dazel gitu ya, karena terkait pendekatan yang memang non pasar ini bisa juga dibilang apa ya, mungkin belum begitu mainstream gitu karena di sini di tingkat Indonesia nih lagi gencar sekali gitu ya karbon, dan ketika kita scroll apa gitu ya, mesti dilihat di media ataupun di sosial media itu juga mulai banyak gitu proyek terkait karbon, atau sebelumnya kita pernah dengar RED Plus gitu ya, REDD Plus. Tuh teman-teman mungkin juga tahu gitu soal seperti apa sih gitu barang ini gitu. Ada yang mungkin mau menanyakan langsung, silakan unmute atau via chat juga boleh.
Saya boleh menambahkan sedikit, Mbak, sebelum
Boleh,
pada
boleh.
bertanya gitu. Jadi saya ingin melanjutkan yang Desel. Jadi Desel kan menyampaikan artikel 6,8. Saya jadi ingat ya, karena saya tidak berani menyampaikan tadi karena bukan ranah saya. Tetapi kalau kita bicara soal UNFCCC, maka sebetulnya banyak sekali yang harus kita masukkan. Kalau mau nanti saya carikan waktu, ada kawan kita di Jerman Watch sana yang cukup cukup bagus juga, nanti diajak ngobrol. Giovanni di sana yang ngobrol. Tapi gini, beberapa hal yang mungkin harus dilihat ini ya Mbak Mega dan kawan-kawan. Ada beberapa negosiasi yang penting yang ada kemungkinannya ada terkait dengan masyarakat adat ya. Pertama, soal mitigasi dan just transition itu banyak sekali di situ. Nah, soalnya yang megang bukan kita. Kita lagi koordinasi nanti dengan teman-teman KLH. Kemudian ada adaptasi dan transparansi. Kemudian ada climate finance. Kalau mungkin tadi di Desel ada climate finance. Artikel 6 sendiri ada tadi. Artikel 6 itu banyak sekali. Desel baru artikel 6,8. Belum 6,1, 6 sampai 6,7-nya. Banyak sekali. Banyak hal yang terkait dengan apa? eh, market, bahkan yang bukan non market itu banyak sekali yang terkait dengan itu. Kemudian transfer teknologi ini juga penting. Kadang-kadang transfer teknologi itu sangat membebani ya buat masyarakat. Ini yang masyarakat, apalagi masyarakat adat ya, ketika misalnya tiba-tiba tidak boleh, aduh, tidak boleh membakar ladang. Kalau padi ladang di Kalimantan, teman-teman di punaan IBAN kan ya sama aja bunuh diri kalau tidak boleh ini kan harus zero burning gitu kan misalnya itu. Kemudian CB dan AC ini yang banyak, yang ini terkait dengan pemberdayaan. Kemudian agriculture ini dipegang pastinya oleh kawan-kawan pertanian, tapi kemarin tidak ada yang hadir di BON. eh, dan juga teman-teman Setkap, anak buahnya Letnan Kolonel Teddy ya di situ. Nah, kemudian ada gender sendiri khusus itu di pegang teman-teman KPPA apa Kementerian Perempuan dan Perlindungan Anak. Kemudian ada respon measure, ini juga penting. Kemudian ada compliance sebelum nanti yang terakhir di LCIBP. Saya kira itu Mbak ini yang penting. Banyak sekali kalau engagement yang harus yang tidak ada di Kementerian saya kok Pak Mbak. Jadi begitu dipisah dengan KLH dengan kehutanan, ternyata yang masih dipegang oleh kehutanan tinggal ICIPP. Dari mitigasi, adaptasi, climate finance dan sebagainya itu tidak di kita. Sehingga saya kira penting juga nanti teman-teman WGI untuk engage dengan itu. Tetapi kalau boleh saya sarankan mungkin ada semacam apa ya best practice dari WGI yang bisa kita bawa nanti ke film kalau diperkenankan, kalau diperbolehkan ya, karena itu akan menjadi best
Tentu,
practice
Pak.
kita. Ya karena seperti Mas Desel tadi, nggak usah cari di gang lah, kan cari saya bisa kemana-mana, nggak harus di gang. Karena saya bisa ada di mana-mana. Ya, jadi memang itu yang terjadi. Memang agak susah partis negosiator ini untuk ketemu gitu ya. Tetapi saya kira eh, saya kan menjadi salah satu negosiator di sana. Jadi silakan kalau ada bahan-bahan yang bisa memperkuat posisi masyarakat adat kita, eh, silahkan kami diisi gitu lah, di charge. Karena
Ya,
selama ini kan kami hanya punya data hutan adat, mungkin ada beberapa hal yang penting menjadi apa best practice kita, kemudian itu bisa masuk ke dalam skema tadi, skema-skema yang mungkin akan masuk di apa pertama mungkin di just transition itu cukup penting, kemudian adaptasi dari transparansi, kemudian di CB dan ACE ya. Kalau agriculture mungkin agak sulit karena agriculture biasanya lebih kepada walaupun itu masyarakat adat pasti terdampak ya biasanya ketika ada perubahan iklim
ya,
eh, soal pertanian tuh apa turunnya ketahanan pangan dan sebagainya. Nah ini respon measure dan compliance ini juga saya kira penting terkait di
ya.
sana sehingga saya kira teman-teman WGI dengan apa keanekaragaman hayati yang ada di masyarakat adat yang dalam bentuk pengetahuan maupun juga dalam bentuk praktek-praktek ini bisa kita bawa untuk masuk ke dalam negosiasi tersebut misalnya salah satunya lewat non market yang desel. Tapi saya kira yang market juga oke karena kita punya Undang-Undang 11 Protokol Nagoya tentang
Aku
benefit
Nago ya.
sharing. Jadi saya kira itu yang harus dibawa dan sampai hari ini salah satu turunan dari Protokol Nagoya ya Permen 34 yang ada di kota dan di saya.
Ya.
Walaupun seharusnya itu ditarik ke KLH tapi nggak ada yang ngurusin, jadi tetap saya urusin. Jadi lewat mungkin bisa kita kita bawa ke ranah yang lebih jauh. Saya kira itu Mbak. Terima kasih.
Siap, Pak Pras. Tentu pokoknya ini menjadi titik apa ya? Titik pacuan untuk kegiatan kolaboratif nanti ya Pak ya selanjutnya ya. Untuk teman-teman juga di
Siap,
sini.
siap.
Ya, dan saya melihat sebenarnya ini ada beberapa dari CSO ya, salah satunya mungkin PKBI Lampung, YBBI, JPIK, lalu juga ada dari Republika ya, Pak Bona, selaku jaringan pemangku hak nih Pak Bona untuk Nusa Tenggara. Mungkin ada yang ingin berkomentar juga apa dipersilakan gitu ya teman-teman. Silakan Mbak Asti.
Halo, eh, mudah-mudahan sinyalnya bagus karena lagi di kereta. Em, Mumpung ada Pak Pres di sini, aku sambil mau menanyakan sebenarnya Pak, kalau dalam ini kan negosiasi hampir tiap tahun dan seperti apa sih Pak sebenarnya kalau di pemerintah Indonesia sendiri ya untuk mempersiapkan ketika mereka akan berangkat ke COP gitu. Karena jujur kami di WGI juga belum terlalu banyak mengulik soal COP yang iklim. Eh, Kami kemarin-kemarin lebih banyak di COP yang CBD. Nah, sebenarnya kami pengen tahu, adakah semacam, ya kayak tadi kan ternyata negosiatornya ada banyak. Tematik yang akan dibahas pun banyak, concern isunya pun akan banyak. Nah, ini apakah masing-masing focal point atau delegasi itu dia akan eh, apa namanya berkonsolidasi dan seperti itu ya dan menetapkan kira-kira Indonesia positioningnya terhadap item-item itu akan seperti apa. Dan kalau ada pertemuan-pertemuan seperti itu, biasanya itu dilakukan eh, seperti apa Pak gitu. Apakah dia sebelum apa sebulan sebelum atau seperti apa gitu dan em, apakah itu hanya untuk antar pemerintah atau kita juga sebenarnya bisa ikut terlibat di situ memberikan position apa bukan memberikan ya tapi setidaknya kita memberikan masukan dan lain sebagainya itu satu. Yang kedua ini terkait mitigation dan adaptation itu ya Pak. Salah satunya kan memang yang banyak sekali memang lebih isunya lebih naik ini yang just transition dimitigasi lah. Cuman saya lihat juga di adaptasi ini ada hal-hal yang cukup urgent juga untuk dilihat. Salah satunya itu adalah global goal on adaptation. Nah, kalau dari posisinya Pak Pras sendiri dengan LCIP dan lain sebagainya dengan business people, ada nggak sih Pak concern khusus terkait negosiasi ini? Apalagi kalau tidak salah ya, kalau tidak salah di COP 30 nanti si Global Goal on Adaptation itu sudah akan memuat indikator-indikator yang lebih konkret gitu dan itu nanti akan apa ada target dan lain sebagainya. Mungkin itu dulu Mbak Mega, terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih Mbak Asti. Mungkin langsung dijawab ya Pak Pras, silakan.
Ya, jadi ini yang bisa menjawab di teman kayaknya kemarin Mbak Mega udah bikin acara dengan teman PPI ya. Itu gimana ininya?
Sebenarnya ini bareng teman-teman koalisi juga sih Pak, tapi masih nanti
Mhm.
karena kita pun kemarin harusnya audiensi itu ternyata tertunda karena
Oke,
ada panggilan. Jadi
oh sih.
nanti kita baru lihat sebenarnya pemetaan
Ya,
tersebut, tapi
jadi
silakan.
jadi gini kayaknya saya kira penting karena gini, LCIPP ini kan sebetulnya mandatory event. Jadi karena mandatory event dia bukan negosiasi, sehingga apa yang kita kita bawa nanti sebenarnya kita harus kumpulkan dalam konteks apakah nanti mau masuk di mana. Nah, nanti kalau saya usulkan kita konsultatif meeting bareng saja dengan teman-teman PPI, terutama dari beberapa direktorat ya, Direktorat Mobilisasi dan Direktorat dua itu pokoknya Mas Wahyu dan Pak dari Sulawesi itu. eh yang di bawahnya kan ada Mbak Ukir gitu ya dan sebagainya. Nah, Mbak Ukir itu saya kira yang paling berpengalaman gitu ya. Sehingga kalau saya lihat kemarin ada fotonya Mbak Ukir presentasi deh di depan BGI gitu ya. Mudah-mudahan itu bisa menjawab. Tapi saya kira ini penting karena sampai hari ini terus terang saja dalam konteks NDC, dalam konteks negosiasi yang ada di dalam platformnya UNFCCC memang belum banyak kepentingan masyarakat adat itu terwakili. Ini saya kira mesti butuh ngobrol panjang dengan kawan-kawan di PPI. Karena posisinya kita hampir sama, Mbak Mega. Saya juga sedang mencoba engage sebetulnya supaya kita bisa masuk di negosiator secara resmi pada satu satu atau dua platform eh, platform juga LCPP kan juga platform, tapi yang ini negosiasi kita terlibat untuk yang jadi kita ini sementara kalau di UNFCCC ini pria panggilan. Jadi kalau ada isu LCIPP atau IP di trans just transition kita tiba-tiba disuruh bawa ke sana. Tiba-tiba hari ini tiba-tiba dibawa ke agriculture, tiba-tiba dibawa ke respon measure. Yang sering saya ikuti respon measure, just transition sama itu. Jadi memang eh, terus terang kawan-kawan negosiator di luar saya gitu ya, karena kita kan biasa main dengan masyarakat adat, itu masih agak eh, gagap terkait dengan ketika isunya adalah isu IP, isu masyarakat adat. Kepentingan apa yang harus kita bawa? Ini kadang-kadang Ini harus kita perjuangkan. Misalnya just transition. Ini kan ketika kita merubah pada sesuatu pola pola gaya baru kebijakan misalnya, itu kan yang harus kita bela adalah kepentingan masyarakat. Tapi kadang-kadang yang apa yang dilihat hanya persoalan ini semuanya bisa diselesaikan dengan teknologi tinggi. Padahal kita punya praktek-praktek kearifan lokal yang bisa memitigasi perubahan iklim, misalnya seperti pengelolaan air subak di Bali, walaupun secara tidak langsung ya. Kemudian pengelolaan hutan agroforestry secara adat di beberapa tempat. Tidak harus melulu misalnya harus menjadi reboisasi massal gitu kan. Kalau reboisasi itu diserahkan pada agroforestry di masyarakat adat, maka jumlah berapa jumlah eh, tutupan lahan yang bisa kita preserve untuk mitigasinya. Termasuk nanti ke eh, result based payment-nya. Kalau Bang Mas Desel tadi soal non-marketnya, tapi kita bicara result based payment. Result based payment ini masih belum banyak yang terkait dengan masyarakat adat. Jadi masih umum yang ada di Indonesia, bahkan itu terkait dengan additionality aja. Misalnya ada hutan, itu result based payment tidak bisa dilihat hutan, saya punya hutan 100 hektar, nggak bisa dibayar result based payment. Tapi saya menambah kerapatan 100 hektar itu menjadi kira-kira 150 hektar dengan tanaman baru di sekitarnya. Nah, result based payment-nya dibayarnya yang 50.000. Tapi ini kita kayak tukang sapu jalan ya, sapu Ndoro sudah selesai ini sapu jalan 5 meter digaji 75 perak. Itu kan sangat sangat terhina sekali sebetulnya. Tapi kan kita bangga sampai hari ini dengan result based payment gitu. Mohon maaf ya kalau ada teman-teman LH. Tapi itulah yang terjadi hari ini sehingga kemarin ada TFFF yang bicara mengenai bahwa hutan ini juga harus menjadi bagian dari investment. Bukan hanya result based payment, seakan-akan kita ini jadi buruh dari isu climate change gitu ya. Buruh untuk memitigasinya. Oh, kita sudah me- mem- mengadakan eh, untuk penyerapan karbon sekian hektar lah bayar berapa seikhlasnya lah gitu kan ke negara-negara barat gitu. Walaupun ada angkanya, tapi angkanya sangat rendah. Nah, sebetulnya ada angka yang jauh lebih tinggi itu ketika dia dikelola oleh masyarakat adat. Nah, ini yang Indonesia belum membicarakannya dengan baik begitu ya. Saya kira ini penting. Pendanaan itu ada dimungkinkan bahwa pendanaan untuk masyarakat adat yang dikelola sumber daya alamnya itu jauh lebih tinggi nilainya, tetapi belum banyak kita diskusikan di tingkat delegasi RI-nya. Saya kira ini juga penting. Belum menjadi ini, Mbak, belum menjadi satu fokus dari arahan negosiasi delegasi Republik Indonesia kita. Saya kira ini penting untuk didorong. Kapan kalau perlu kita ngobrol dengan ya ngobrol bareng lah dengan Pak Menterinya atau dengan Pak Ari tadi Pak Dirjen PPI-nya. Tapi mungkin secara teknikal dengan dua direktorat tadi, Direktorat Adaptasi dan Mobilisasi Perubahan Iklim. Saya kira itu Mbak. Terima kasih.
Ya baik, cukup jelas ya Pak Pras dan ini menjadi peluang juga nih Mbak Sti untuk tadi ya rapat konsultatif lintas KL ataupun direktorat ya, atau direktorat mungkin karena JTWP sendiri pun juga ada ini ya Pak ya kan, maksudnya ada kepalanya sendiri gitu. Jadi mungkin untuk sama-sama kita bersinergi gitu ya, seperti apa nih mungkin kita bisa belajar memprioritaskan juga dari mungkin pertemuan tersebut gitu. Misal untuk bagaimana mungkin apa ya melaksanakan sebuah proyek, misalkan proyek karbon ataupun proyek yang memang menggunakan pendekatan yang memang non pasar begitu ya, yang juga ada soal apa pemenuhan haknya dan pemenuhan aspek keadilannya dan sebagainya. Jadi nanti kita bisa sama-sama apa menindaklanjuti itu gitu ya dari prioritas beberapa isu dan agenda yang dimaksud. Dan mungkin dari kawan-kawan di sini apabila masih ada pertanyaan silakan banget. Kita masih terbuka kawan-kawan. sampai 16.30 sebenarnya ya. Cuma ketika katakanlah 5 menit, 10 menit memang belum ada pertanyaan. Um, Oke, Dazzle, please.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Thanks, Pras, for that very comprehensive explanation. Also, just wondering how are if you have any information on the status of NDC 3.0 for Indonesia.
Ah,
How is it going now? And do you think it will be submitted before Belém? Maybe you can share some
of
thoughts.
course. I think it should be, right? Because I think that's the final date, of course. But I don't know how the process have been because actually we already addressed our importance and our key importance that should be addressed through the SNDCs, but I don't know so far about the current progress. Maybe Papras, please
Iya,
share
ya.
any.
Jadi, yes, so we still 2.0 now, and we don't have
Yeah.
any information about 3.0.
Mm,
I think we need updating from my colleagues in Environmental Ministry of Environment. Mbak Mega, saya kira penting juga
mm,
dalam konteks NDC ini memang NDC 2 sekalipun belum banyak dalam dokumen NDC 2 itu terkait
mm.
dengan masyarakat adat. Saya kira ini memang perlu advokasi khusus ya, karena
Yeah.
NDC ini kan nasional focal point-nya ada di KLH.
Mm,
Nah, kami ini justru sekarang ini marginal ya, kehutanan ini agak termarginalkan dalam konteks ini bukan bukan ini ya, bukan apa, bukan curhat, tapi memang kondisinya seperti itu. Sehingga
mm.
di BON kemarin itu bahkan dari Delri itu negosiatornya cuma saya sama Pak Direktur saja, berdua aja, gak ada yang lain. Jadi ini menjadi langkah mundur sebetulnya ya sejak pemisahan ini karena kemudian keterwakilannya menjadi persoalan.
Yeah.
Sementara yang harusnya mewakili tidak pada hadir semua karena pada waktu itu
Mm.
mau ada efisiensi. Sehingga saya itu
Okay.
paling sibuk muter ke sana kemari bahkan agriculture pun harus saya masukin. Karena tidak ada orang,
Yeah,
tidak
yeah.
ada orang. Nah,
Okay.
kelihatan sekali bahwa selama ini memang eh, IP itu ada, tapi tidak pernah dibicarakan oleh Indonesia bahwa kita punya IP sedemikian banyak. Begitu kita bicara, baru mereka kaget-kaget lah, partis-partis ini kan. Kalau di dalam konteks ini. Selama ini memang kurang apa ya pemahamannya. Saya kira memang harus ada semacam apa nasional dokumen ya terkait dengan masyarakat adat itu seperti apa, konteksnya seperti itu. Saya kira itu penting ya. Karena tadi benar Desal bahwa yang untuk kesempatan kita untuk edisi yang edisi 3.0 karena yang dua kan udah kemarin dan itu masih terbatas sekali tentang
Mm.
masyarakat adat. Saya kira penting nanti data-data ini bisa masuk gitu ya, karena kita juga sedang membuat prognosis terkait dengan hutan adat. Nah, tinggal nanti yang teman-teman BGI mau seperti apa. Karena data yang akan kita bawa film itu 400 ribu hektar untuk masyarakat
Mm.
adatnya yang kita bawa sebagai best practice. Kemudian saya pengennya bawa 8 juta yang PS, tapi saya agak nggak berani karena PS ini masih awut-awutan. Apakah dia benar-benar sampai kepada konteks climate change-nya apa enggak gitu? Karena banyak juga di PS ini ada keterlanjuran sawit, ada juga PS sayur mayur dan lain sebagainya nggak ada hutannya gitu ya. Nah ini yang menjadi persoalan. Tetapi saya kira penting kalau ada dari teman-teman manapun gitu, teman-teman dari CSO, WGI apa eh, perkumpulan-perkumpulan ini ada data yang mau kita bawa ke dalam konteks nanti menjadi ranah penting apa yang perlu kita negosiasikan untuk kepentingan masyarakat adat. Karena database-nya kan belum belum ada sampai hari ini. Berapa yang mau kita pegang? Data BRW misalnya ada Mas Sakti di sini, 33 juta. Apakah kita mau pegang itu? Nah, ini kan juga eh, belum diotorisasi oleh negara. Ini saya kira rumit. Mungkin kalau sudah ada diotorisasi berani saya bawa. Tapi kan belum ada otorisasi ya saya nggak berani. Makanya yang bisa saya bawa berani ya apa yang kita kerjakan di 400 ribu hektar tadi. Nah, mungkin dari teman-teman tadi berapa, kemudian apa yang akan kita sampaikan ketambahan mungkin nanti dengan KIK juga karena kita punya 10.000 dan saya kira KIK juga bisa dibawa ke ke kop CBD-nya juga.
Iya,
Cuman memang
betul. Mm-mm.
teman-teman Kemenkumham itu kan hanya mendaftar, jadi dia tidak punya apa ya, tidak punya apa ya, eager untuk sampai ke sana kemari. Yang penting saya mendaftar aja. Jadi pasif sementara ini. Nah itu
Mm.
bagaimana penggunaan dan sebagainya belum memang. Kemarin waktu kita undang ya ada Mbak Mega
Ya,
di situ. Jadi
ya.
itu penting juga
Nanti
untuk
semoga
dibawa.
kita menjadi sama-sama pengawal ya Pak ya untuk
Ya
memastikan
betul
bahwa
betul.
ini insya Allah semoga tetap di jalur
Siap.
yang benar.
Ya, kalaupun tersesat tetap di jalan
Dan
yang benar ya. Ya nggak apa-apa.
ya, tapi mungkin karena tadi sedikit apa menyentuh soal peta nih ya. Mungkin Mas Adit dari BRWA ada mau komentar atau pertanyaan follow up mungkin Mas Adit BRWA, halo.
Mas Sakti loh tadi.
Iya, tapi kayaknya sudah eh, terlempar nih atau
Oh sudah keluar
sudah.
ya.
Oh ini eh, mungkin dari Mas Hans ya, Mas Hans, halo, Mas Hans mau ngabai,
Iya, iya, iya.
silakan
Halo.
mungkin
Iya,
ada ya.
iya. Terima kasih. Perkenalkan semua, nama saya Hans dari Mongabai. Saya cuma mau klarifikasi dikit aja sih ke Pak Pras ya tadi yang soal 400.000 hektar itu data apa gitu ya. Terus datanya itu kalau misalnya memang soal wilayah yang dikelola oleh masyarakat adat itu sudah terverifikasi atau gimana gitu. Mungkin bisa diklarifikasi ya. Makasih.
Ya, terima kasih. Kalau 400.000 sekarang 130 104. Jadi masih ada 60 lagi yang belum terus. Dan nanti kalau ini kita akan dorong mudah-mudahan sudah tambahan 60.000 yang dikelola oleh 173 komunitas di seluruh Indonesia. Yang tadi tadi datanya ya, si satu itu kalau tambahan mereka itu masih ini yang bagus gitu Mbak Mel.
Sebentar, maaf, Pak Pras, sepertinya suaranya putus-putus nih Pak, punten.
Oh iya, sinyal saya yang 400.000 hektar kita ambil. Kita sudah sekarang nilainya A 300 ada di 100 dan akan tambah 60.000 dari Sorong Lato itu ada 100 ya. Kan ada proses. Jadi ini yang sudah penetapan hutan adat eh, sudah resmi legal dilindungi oleh negara gitu ya. Hutan adatnya tidak diberikan kepada BPPH atau persetujuan izin pihak lain, tapi dikelola masyarakat adat langsung. Itu siap. Putus-putus ya Mbak. Aduh.
Ya di saya sih juga sebenarnya agak putus-putus sih Pak, tapi sepertinya memang itu pokoknya hutan adat memang sudah terverifikasi begitu ya bahwa
Sudah terverifikasi.
alokasinya, ya bahwa alokasinya memang untuk masyarakat adat. Jadi
Mm-mm.
mungkin Mas Hans sudah cukup menangkap ya. Halo.
Nanti sebentar juga akan kita rilis Mbak lewat Satgas
Oh,
Percepatan Hutan Adat. Tapi
oh,
kami masih
mm-mm.
menunggu penyelesaian. Tapi sementara angka sekarang 340.000 Mbak.
Ya,
Selama
tiga ratus empat
9
puluh
tahun,
ribu.
8 tahun terakhir ya. Nanti kita karena sudah di state Pak Menteri di depan DPR yang kemarin di demo gitu ya. Gak ada hubungannya. Tapi ini nanti angkanya kita harapkan akan lebih meningkat ya karena kita sudah punya Satgas, teman-teman CSO sudah banyak yang menjadi bagian, tapi bukan berarti yang tidak menjadi anggota Seknas bukan tidak dilibatkan. Ini hanya fase awal nanti kita akan inklusif, kita akan undang semua datanya, kita kumpulkan untuk mempercepat proses pelindungan masyarakat adat yang masih mengelola dan melindungi hutannya. Itu yang kita kejar di konteks beberapa tahun ke depan, siapapun penguasanya gitu ya, kira-kira begitu.
Siap. Oke deh, Pak. Berarti teman-teman mungkin kita inhale exhale ya 2 menit dulu sambil menunggu. Kalau mau ada yang ambil snack atau minum gitu ya silakan. Tapi sambil menunggu karena dari kami pun juga berharap tentu dari teman-teman ya setelah acara ini selesai kita akan terus terhubung gitu. Tapi selama webinar ini pertanyaan, komentar ataupun feedback itu sangat kami apresiasi. Jadi tentunya dari kami juga menyiapkan souvenir gitu ya untuk nanti 3 peserta webinar yang memang aktif gitu ya bertanya ataupun juga mengisikan form itu secara jelas, form feedback, sorry. Jadi nanti akan kita kirimkan gitu. Jadi semoga acara ini gitu ya akan terus menjadi pemantik untuk teman-teman belajar dan saling bertukar informasi, memperkaya diri gitu ya terkait isu-isu terkait negosiasi ataupun mekanisme yang ada di dalam KTT Iklim Global. Dan mungkin sambil menunggu, pokoknya di sini kita tunggu sampai 16-17 ya Rona ya. Dan Dazzle, later you can probably also give dan juga Pak Pras ya, give like a final comment before we close our webinar today. So let's say for Dazzle, for example, like because you already said in your presentation that no outcome at the Bonn conference, like the SBI 62 last June. So how do you see about that? Are you still feeling hopeful about this negotiation thing and specifically on the Article 6.8 measure? And yeah, any closing statements that you feel it's important to say? Please have your say.
Siapa dulu nih Mbak? Desel apa saya dulu?
Oke, Pak. 1 menit dulu ya, sambil
Oh ya,
menunggu. 16, 17. Kami juga nanti akan melampirkan, mungkin dari teman-teman juga tahu bahwa Direktorat PKTHA itu juga aktif, cukup aktif gitu ya, Instagram ataupun alamat emailnya juga ya. Kalau nggak salah kita juga pernah beberapa kali dan maksudnya untuk berkontak gitu. Jadi teman-teman misal kayak tadi tuh terkait Taman Nasional ataupun isu terkait bagaimana sih sebenarnya kriteria untuk ditetapkannya kawasan hutan. Karena ternyata hutan dan kawasan hutan itu juga beda banget ya teman-teman. Jadi apa yang kita lihat, oh ini hutan, kawasan hutan, itu ada banyak sekali gitu ya terminologi ataupun ya sekali lagi nih bahan pembelajaran juga untuk saya juga gitu di sini. Dan ya jadi mari terus merawat jejaring ini gitu ya untuk kita saling tumbuh. Yeay. Dan oke, udah 16-17 mungkin Pak Pras silakan. Sorry
ya.
Dazzle.
Terima kasih Mbak. Saya kira kalau
Ya.
tugas kita mungkin sama ya, kita bekerja di ruang-ruang perlindungan masyarakat adat ini memang perjuangan panjang. Jangan menyerah, jangan cepat menyerah. Ada lagunya, eh, apa lagunya si The Massive ya. Jangan menyerah. Dan kita memang perlu kolaborasi untuk meningkatkan eh, percepatan proses pelindungan di segala sisi karena tadi yang saya sampaikan ada 9 sampai 10 eh, ruang negosiasi yang harus disampaikan. Kalau bicara masyarakat adat ini dikelola hampir oleh 25 kementerian, lembaga, sehingga memang semua kementerian ini, semua kementerian juga harus kita satukan Saya kira jejaring ini harus meningkatkan juga nanti. Kita ada tim koordinasi juga, Mbak Mega, tim koordinasi antar kementerian, berisi 25 kementerian, maka saya sebutkan 20 kementerian itu untuk layanan kepercayaan dan masyarakat adat yang dikelola oleh Kemenko PMK. Tapi sampai hari ini belum ada SK baru, saya biasanya anggota di situ. Nah, itu saya kira juga bisa digerakkan di situ semua. Linknya masih ada di saya. Kalau mau kita undang bareng-bareng, bisa kita undang juga dengan kontak person yang sudah ada di grupnya. Saya kira itu bisa kita, karena tadi menjaga jejaring, nah, tidak hanya menjaga jejaring, kita membangun jejaring baru. Dan saya siap menjadi simpul jejaring yang diperluas tadi. Terima kasih, Mbak Mega.
Tentu Pak. Terima kasih banyak atas kesempatannya dan juga materi yang
Sama-sama.
sangat bermanfaat. Dan Daisel, please your closing statement.
Oh, maybe just to say thank you.
Mungkin hanya ingin mengatakan terima kasih banyak untuk WGII, untuk Pak Pras juga, untuk diskusi yang sangat mendetail tentang pengalaman dan juga tentang tantangan yang dihadapi dalam negosiasi terkait iklim. Ini juga penting untuk sama pentingnya dengan pendekatan pasar, penting juga untuk melihat kesempatan untuk bekerja sama, untuk bekerja terkait dengan pendekatan non-pasar, dan juga memperkuat pekerjaan yang sudah dilakukan oleh WGII yang masih terkait dengan aksi terkait iklim. Jadi menggunakan pendekatan yang belum banyak digunakan untuk mendukung implementasi NDC di Indonesia dan juga mempromosikan, mendukung untuk masyarakat adat. Pendekatan non-pasar juga penting untuk diperkuat dan juga penting untuk memperkuat apa yang sudah kita lakukan.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for us to also
Terima kasih banyak.
some key issues,
Kita sudah membicarakan agenda isu-isu penting, isu-isu
course, dan teman-teman tentunya yang jelas karena ini masih chapter kedua, jadi ditunggu untuk chapter selanjutnya. Dan sekali lagi terima kasih atas Pak Pras dan kehadirannya, Daisel juga. Semoga kerja-kerja kita selalu diberkati. Dan
Amin.
tentu untuk teman-teman juga terima kasih banyak karena tanpa kehadiran teman-teman tentunya webinar ini tidak akan berjalan. Jadi semoga tetap terhubung ya kawan-kawan. Terima kasih. Nanti
Terima
untuk link
kasih.
feedback form akan segera dikirimkan.
Terima kasih Mbak Mega.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Mbak
you, Daisel.
Mega. Thank you, Pak Pras. Thanks everyone.
Terima kasih teman-teman semua karena saya ada meeting yang lain. Mohon izin untuk keluar dulu. Terima kasih Mbak Mega.
Terima kasih, izin.
Terima kasih.